Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to all of you for this very special webinar, which marks the launch of the 2022 integrated report of AXA. And I'm delighted to be here with you for this live session with a very prestigious guest, which I will introduce in a second. I'd like to say at the beginning of this session that at any time you can ask your questions on AXA.com or via LinkedIn Live, and we'll answer them at the end of the exchange today. It's always a very special event when we release this little baby here, our annual integrated report, because it's a way for us to share with all of you how we look at the past year, how we look at everything that has been happening here within the company, both from a strategic point of view, from a business point of view, our financial performance, our extra financial performance, and especially how we are moving forward our culture and our strategy for our people. This year's report is really focusing on what we consider here at AXA as being the essence of our business. It is at the heart of AXA's purpose. It is about protection. And we are going to look at it. If you read it, and you can access it already on AXA.com, it's a way to look at how protection unfolds through our different business lines, but also through our culture, and also, and this is what we will focus on today, through our environmental, social, and economic commitments. And this is really what we want to discuss today with my guests through this webinar, is really to look at how on government issues, on social issues and environmental issues, AXA is trying to do the right thing, trying to make a difference and build sustainable value for its employees, its customers, and all the stakeholders. I have to say also that this year is a very special year for us because it's the first time that we have our chairman, Antoine Gosset-Graville, with us. And Antoine, you were appointed chairman of AXA a year ago in April 2022. So thank you very much for being here today with us.
Thank you very much, Ulrike. And as you said, that's the first time I am taking part in presenting our integrated report, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to meet all our community, all the members of our community.
Thank you very much, Antoine, and we'll have many, many questions for you. We're also delighted to welcome at the table two people I like a lot, and also we work together very often, and they are really critical to some of these aspects. Kirsty Levers, you're AXA's Global Head of Culture, Inclusion and Diversity, and we will be discussing those very important elements of our people strategy with you in a moment. And Jean-Baptiste Tricot, you're AXA's Chief Investment Officer, and of course, no surprise, I'd like to hear from you a bit more about our climate strategy. And so we have 45 minutes, a bit less, together with the three of you to discuss the three pillars of AXA's impact strategy. So welcome to the two of you. Thank you for all being here. And let's get started with our webinar. Antoine, I will start with you because, of course, we mentioned it was a special year. Of course, your first year at the helm of AXA's board as chairman. And I think we'd all be interested in having a glimpse of this overview from your point of view as a new joiner of the family and also in this role. How would you describe 2022 for AXA, the business environment, and what happened for us in this very particular year?
Thank you, Ulrike. Obviously, 2022 was a turning point. Who could have anticipated at the beginning of last year the war in Ukraine and the geopolitical turmoil, the energy crisis, the inflation, the increasing interest rates, without speaking of more specific events for the insurance sector, which are the natural disaster which occurred last year after 3 first years of a significant event. And obviously, operating in this kind of environment is a challenge. But AXA clearly has demonstrated its capacity, its ability to adapt and to continue to improve its result, even in such an adverse environment. And beyond financial performance, one of the key words of last year for me was investment. Investment in tech and data, which are very significant at AXA, but also investment in human resources. And we all know that people are the main contributors to competitivity and performance. So on behalf of the whole board of directors, I would like to thank Thomas and his team and all the group employees for their engagement, which made 2022 a successful year.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, for those kind words, Antoine. In your view, and you described the very complicated environment we're in, where does the group stand today, maybe looking also a bit at the future?
The overall performance in 2022 has been remarkable. Look at the figures. 2% growth in revenues, 4% growth in earnings, 12% growth in earnings per share, and this impressive level of performance allowed us to fully conciliate our main objectives, which are to combine first, an active investment policy, second, strict financial discipline, which is more than ever needed in the environment I just described, and third, an ambitious shareholder policy. And you know that we have decided at board level on the recommendation of Thomas to have 1.70 euros per share of dividends plus a program of share buyback, which is again fully compatible with our financial and investment objectives, which is remarkable. And for me, this overall performance clearly reflects that the strategy which has been decided a few years ago and consistently implemented last year was a good one and still is a good one.
Great. And I know it's too early probably to tell us anything, but I also know that the board is very involved in the thinking process around the next strategic plan. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a few words and ideas and insights about where we are on this.
Well, on that, as you perfectly rightly said, it is too early to be specific because the plan will be announced only at the beginning of next year. What I can say is that we already started to work quite actively at board level in close cooperation with Thomas and his team to identify the main priorities of this future plan. And what I can also say is that the objective is to combine first the development of the group, but in a way which preserve a strong financial performance. That's absolutely key. And second element, we will try and do our best to increase the role of AXA in society, given our purpose, which is to which relates to protection. And it is sure that in one way or another, our future plan will not only be developed on financial objectives, but also on non-financial ones related to this purpose.
Excellent. So we're looking forward to it, and we will probably discuss it then next year. Thank you very much for this introduction. And I suggest that we jump to the ESG pillars that we were planning to discuss today. But before that, we have a quick video for you. So as I said, we're going to focus now on the ESG pillars of AXA, which are highlighted in this report. And the reason why we chose to highlight them is because each of them tell you really something about the way AXA looks at the world, tries to understand the changes, come up with solutions and have a positive impact. And I guess it's very natural for us to start with governance, with you, Antoine, and to ask you a bit what this first year as chairman has been like for you, discovering a company, starting the work with the board, with the management committee. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, for this first year, I had three main objectives. The first one was to define and implement a good working method with Thomas. And that's what we did. We have weekly one-to-one meetings, and beyond that, I think I can say we have daily contacts in one way or another. And our relationship is totally based on trust and transparency. My second objective was to adjust the board organization to make it even more efficient. And that's also what we did. First, we have tried to reinforce our skills and expertise, notably with the arrival of Rachel Picard, who joined us. She was before at SNCF, and she was in charge of the digital transformation of SNCF, and she brings us this expertise on tech and data, which is really needed. We also decided to reorganize a little bit our committees, the committees of the board, to give more emphasis on the monitoring of risks and of sustainability. And my third objective was to visit our major entities and to meet as many AXA teams as possible. And during this first year, I went to Roma, Zurich, Tokyo, Cairo, Lyon, and even in Paris. And during these visits, I have observed how strong are the values at AXA and also the strength of the group culture.
Have you, I think this year was also, you said it, a year where you started to also put your own footprint, I mean your mark on how the board was going to work. What are, in your view, the key priorities on which you want to, you feel you need to focus as a board to support AXA in the next phase?
Formally speaking, the role of the board is to bring the future strategy, to ensure a close monitoring of the risks we are facing, and to review the way the group is managed. In the real life, the board, I would say, acts as a collective sparring partner to Thomas and his team. Thomas tests ideas with us, with the board. We ask questions on the way the strategy is implemented or on possible impact of external developments. And at the end of the day, I think we can say that the board plays its role to improve the quality of the decisions which are taken by the company. And regarding our priorities, I could answer in one word. We will totally focus on the months to come on the preparation of the next strategic plan.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us a little bit of a view of what happens behind closed doors, which is not what our employees or us we can see on a day-to-day basis, but it's really good to learn about the way the board helps the organization keep track of its duties and take care of risks and go as far as we can on our strategy. Thank you very much for that. We're now going to discuss the second pillar, the S pillar, which is about our social role. And I guess it starts with our role as an employer, as a responsible employer. And I'm really delighted to welcome you, Kirsty, AXA's Global Head of Culture, Inclusion and Diversity.
Thank you very much. Great.
Great to have you, Kirsty. So as a start, very simply, can you tell us a bit what are, in your view, the key priorities that AXA has in order to really deliver on its strategy to become this diverse, very diverse and inclusive place to work, which we are all, inspired by and trying to build?
Absolutely, and you're right, the link there is to society and making sure that we reflect our customers and also society at large. And I'll start to talk first of all about gender, because gender is something we've been working on for many years and clearly is the first reflection on the outside of what diversity looks like. So we've been working towards gender equality and we've made significant progress over time. If you look at our organisation at the most senior level, so that's the executives, we'll call them the Global Leadership Network, but it's the executive committee in every country that we're in, about 250 people. We now have 39% of that population are women, up from 34 in 2022. But we know that this is still work in progress. We need to stay focused. Historically, there have not been as many women in these positions, so that takes time. And there are 3 ways that we stay really focused on making sure that gender equality is represented throughout the organisation. We look at who are the successors for those roles. So when roles are available, when the very senior roles are available in organisation, who's going to take the next step? Our succession list at the moment is 44% female, so we know that we'll be able to replace as time goes on and as our situation evolves, and we continue to build that pipeline. And secondly, we build that pipeline through development opportunities, through specific programs at global level, as you mentioned, but also in the entities. 17 of our entities have got big leadership programs that support women throughout their career. And lots of the entities have mentoring and other kinds of programs. And then thirdly, and of course that's really important, to make sure that we treat our employees fairly, and pay equity is a key topic. So we are confident, we're sure that at that leadership level we have full pay equity, and we have put projects and money aside to make sure that pay equity is reflected throughout the organisation by the end of this year. So on gender, we have been very focused. We remain focused. This is ongoing work, and I think it shows our commitment as an organisation to equality. But it's not the only topic of inclusion. There are many, many different kinds of diversity, happily, within our organisation, and much more we can do to progress. And the biggest one element that I'd like to talk about that we implemented 2 years ago globally in AXA is the AXA Inclusion Survey. And this gives us the chance to listen to all of our employees about their experience of inclusion at AXA. We ask them if they feel included. We ask over 100,000 people if they feel they have equal opportunities to succeed, if they are feeling really included as part of AXA. And we also ask them about their diversity so we can understand what our organisation looks like and how it feels for people. What we see from that survey, and it's a great way for us to listen to how we can improve both structurally and as individuals, so we'll take notice. And we can build action plans, and the entities create action plans that we support and track and drive. And so from that survey, we know that we can do better for our employees with disability, that we can do more for our people that are from different socioeconomic or cultural backgrounds, and that our employees across the ages have quite different requirements, and that was quite interesting. We've got a lot of feedback about how we can do better both for our older but also for our younger employees. So it's a survey that puts data behind inclusion at AXA as well as the diversity, and really gives us concrete places where we can take actions both globally and locally.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Kirsty, for that. And I also would like to highlight an aspect which I think is really important and also very aligned with our, I would say, our priority from a business point of view on protecting the health of our customers. And so I think one of the wonderful things that you are doing with all the HR community is really to try to bring this also to our employees. And so in 2020, AXA started to deploy a very innovative health policy dedicated to employees worldwide. And I'd love to hear what the key main takeaways are at this stage and what the next steps are that you've thought about.
Fantastic. And you're right, Ulrika, this is something that we're really proud of as an organisation, to roll out a health programme in 51 countries. So all of our employees have access to the same level of healthcare from us, very linked to our health ambition and proving that we take care of our employees and also remain true to our strategy. I think it's easiest to explain it in 3 ways. So the first pillar is around prevention. So how can we help people take care of their health? And for all of our employees over 40 years old, we provide in person, so it's a laboratory or hospital that's chosen by AXA, a full medical every 4 years for every employee. And in fact, 23,000 of our employees took advantage of that in 2022, which was the proof to us that it was a great action and really well received. In addition, all employees every 2 years get access to digital checkups, so we can also learn about our health in a digital way and slightly more frequently. And then on a yearly basis, within the countries, within the entities, we have health days where we give information on health, very often linked to those digital surveys where we know we might have an area, and also we offer vaccinations. So that's the first step around prevention. The second step then is of course to improve healthcare and offer access where we can. We can do this through teleconsultation, and also very specifically, and I will talk a little bit about mental well-being, to have an access to a helpline for people that might be struggling personally or professionally, where they can get professional support to help us be as positive and as well as we can be, both mentally and physically. So first two elements. And then the third one is, of course, those occasions where people are suffering with their health and where we can step in to offer support. I think a very significant example there is for our employees, wherever they are in the world, we will cover 75% of their health requirements if it's cancer related. So treatment related to cancer, we pay at least 75% of that medical expenses related to it. We also offer a second medical opinion. If you've had a diagnosis, we have of course a network of specialists across the world in all topics, and we can offer a second opinion so you can consider your treatments. But then internally it's important as well that we're there to support our employees when they've been through a health event or need support. So we make sure that when people come back from a health event, we can accompany them, we can talk about what's happened, we can support them through that process. And through our employee survey and through our manager training, we train our managers to look out for people that might be facing issues, that might have mental health issues. We are ready, we have the support ready, and as an organisation, able to take the steps or at least have the conversation to make sure we're taking care of health in our employment population. Yeah.
I think that's really wonderful, and I know we plan to continue developing this, so it's really
right.
Wonderful.
More to come.
Exactly. Thank you, Kirsty. A last question on my side of one that many managers are asking themselves, and is about how competitive we can stay as AXA, as an organization, able to recruit talents to be a meaningful employer and win in this war of talents that we have out there on almost all the types of roles that exist. So what are our key attributes there?
It's a good question, and it's a particularly interesting time on the global job market. As we all know, people's expectations have changed. Maybe just first of all to put that into context size-wise, in 2022 we recruited 16,000 people. This is a number that is growing year on year. That's 5,000 up on 2019. Of course, COVID period was a little bit quieter. We have some really active markets, so in the UK, in India, in France and Japan, we're really recruiting quite heavily, and also in some quite specific roles. So specifically sales, actuarial and underwriting roles. They're the roles where we're really looking to employ more people. And we do have a little bit more turnover in some of the key jobs like IT, like actuarial at the moment. So we're very focused on retention, even though we have over 100,000 applications every year to work for us. So our employer brand is good. We can always, and we maintain our focus on doing more. But we know that retention and looking at the whole life of employee will become extremely important. One element that I think is important for all of us is training, and we invest heavily in training. So in 2022, we invested 85 million euros in training for our people. And that's technical training in some of those topics that I talked about before on the technical side, actuarial, IT, but also in transversal trainings for all of our employees, the things that affect all of us. Mm-hmm. And one of them I think that you will know particularly well is the climate training, which was available to all of our employees in the form of a climate academy. And 87% of our employees followed that specific training, which remains very close to our values, which is very important. Antoine spoke earlier about the macroeconomic context, and we know that 2022 for us was a particularly difficult year when we think about the challenges that people face with inflation and the pressures that they have. And of course, we have to take that deeply into consideration. And at AXA, we have a view of a total reward system. Of course, salary is a key part of that. And to put that into context, our salary and wage bill for a year is 8.3 billion euros. So this is a large part of our expenditure. But also the health side that I mentioned earlier, retirement benefits. The fact that we have in place a flexible working policy so that people can create the work-life balance that means they have contact and regular meetings and relationships with the people in the office, but also they can make a balance. And on the salary side, we're of course very conscious in recent times of the challenge. We had an annual salary review budget this year that was higher than usual because of the context. We made sure that we benchmarked with other financial services to ensure that our people were paid fairly according to the market as well as according to their performance. And that we made sure that the people that were earning the lowest salaries were particularly well cared for to make sure that nobody's detrimentally affected by the current situation that we're in. So the package is clearly salary, and we looked very closely at that given the context, the health benefits that we mentioned, smart working, and then share plan as well. So our employees being shareholders is something that's very important to us. It gives us all the opportunity to be engaged in the group success. And I checked my numbers to get it right. As at the end of last year, AXA employees and agents held 4.2% of the shareholding, and that gave them 6% of the voting rights. So people are invested in their career, but also in the success of the organisation.
Exactly, and all of us who are employee shareholders should be receiving right now invitations to the General Assembly and to
use those rights.
Use those voting rights. So I encourage everyone to check that in their mailboxes. Thank you very much, Kirsty, for speaking so eloquently about our people strategy. And I propose that we move to the last but not least pillar of ESG, which is the environment and our commitments towards climate change with you, Jean-Baptiste. And thank you so much for being here. I know you're extremely busy. It's not like you have very simple markets to deal with. So thank you for stopping by and telling us a bit about something that we work on together on a regular basis, which is AXA's commitment in terms of climate change. It's a long-standing commitment, but it's true with Driving Progress 2023, we took it one step higher and really made it part of our key priorities to sustain our commitment in fighting against climate change. And our investment strategy has for a long time and is still one of the really major levers to do that. So can you explain us a bit how this contribution works and how you build with your teams this investment strategy in favor of climate?
Thank you so much for having me. Hello everyone. So on the investment side, we are indeed working towards aligning our asset base to the 1.5 degree warming potential. It's a very important and long-term aspiration to manage more or less 500 billion euro of assets in that direction. It's for us very important because it's two ways. One, it's to protect our investment base, to make it resilient to this economic transition, but it's also, I think, a source of economic opportunity for our policyholder and for our financial performance. We think that all AXA investment teams, but also all AXA IM teams, which I'm in contact daily, we are all very enthusiastic in sizing this economic transition opportunity. Then the question is, how do we contribute and what are the results of our action? I would like to focus on two specific KPIs. One is about the carbon intensity of our portfolio. So overall, how much carbon do we find and do we finance through our activities with public listed companies, but also with our real estate holding. We are one of the largest European and global real estate owner. And also how much we invest positively into green assets, two very important KPIs. So on the first one, on the carbon intensity, we are measuring it for a vast proportion of our assets, corporate bonds, equities, and real estate. We have brought down this carbon intensity by 9% compared to 2021 and compared to 2019, so on a cumulative basis, it's down 35%. So we are quite happy, obviously, as you can imagine. It's really excellent result. It reflects the work of all investment team, the strong tie with AXA IM teams, and notably on the fixed income side. And it's well in advance to the objectives that we set ourselves 3 years ago. So for me, it's really a source of happiness and that we're able to positively contribute and align our portfolio. And it's not just a relative intensity, it's also on absolute basis. The greenhouse gas emissions that we are financing within our company portfolios is down 50% compared to 2019. So that I think is also quite noticeable, a real change, an active change in our portfolio, and we are always making it while meeting our financial objective. So I think it's quite important also to notice. Because we want both. And on green assets, we have invested about 25 billion euro into green assets. Despite higher rates, it's growing 2 billion compared to last year. It's really a diversified portfolio at the end of the day. It's about fixed income, half of it, typically some government bond assets like those sponsored by European Union, green bonds, also some corporate debt issued to tackle specific projects and that are supporting the transition, notably with utilities. It's also 1/4 of the total. And then the second half, it's infrastructure asset and real estate. And so real assets that we are financing that are helping the transformation of our society and also offering, as I said, a good exposure to this economic transformation. I think we have also momentum there. So as I said, it's increasing compared to last year, but when you take a bit of a step back compared to 2019, we have more than double our exposure. So it's growing rapidly, and that's something, again, we can be proud of because it's always, with a high level of selectivity without jeopardizing the economic benefits. And it's really interesting asset. I think for the larger society, it's about when we invest in real estate, in infrastructure, notably with AXA IM and AXA IM Arts team. It's about we are investing in one of, if not the largest wind farm at sea. So that's something which is, I think, quite valuable. The second, also in transport, we are also financing electric, a very large, one of the top 5 electric fleet of trains. So I think that's also quite noticeable. It's empowering people to move in a manner which is, much less carbon intensive. And last example is also we have invested. My previous job was in Japan, and so we've invested into a solar farm in the north of Japan, very large, alongside other investors, which is also powering a very large region in the north part of Japan with a totally alternative source of energy.
So clear. It's really exciting to hear about the role we're taking in this, economic transition, actually, towards low carbon economies. More broadly, you mentioned, and we all know that the markets are pretty bumpy these days, and so more generally in this complex context, what perspectives can you share with us about overall AXA's investment strategy for the coming years, and maybe a bit of the projects you have ahead?
Great. It's indeed a bit challenging those days. The significant uncertainty on the economic activity, on the monetary policies, and Antoine highlighted it's really a reflection of the roots of in 2022 the geopolitical context, the very high and untamed inflation, and also some question in the financial system on its stability for some lack of regulation, notably in the US. So that's clearly areas of focus, and again, all AXA investment teams and AXA IM teams are extremely vigilant and active to make sure that we are taking the best possible decision to protect our balance sheet, our solvency, and make sure that we are there to meet what matters at the end of the day, our commitment towards our policyholders. So I think that's clearly an activity which is taking, quite energy, especially over the last weekends, as you have noticed, I'm sure. On the plans going forward, Antoine also highlighted the preparation of the next strategic plan. We are contributing to that, making sure that we can contribute on, I think, two angles. First one is contributing to the financial performance of the company. That's part of the investment role, but also supporting and going further in the transition. So balancing both aspects. It's something that we are doing, not alone. We are part of multiple associations, but I want to mention two. The first one is a Net Zero Association, Asset Owner Association, which of course is creating a framework for all asset owners and in particular insurers to drive this and support this economic transition. And the second one is the Insurance Development Forum, where we are trying to also address in particular in emerging countries this transition question. The third point I wanted to mention is we are also contributing to creating attractive offers for policyholders, notably green insurance, unit-linked, or in particular in France, Eurocroissance, definitely an area for growth and development, which is well aligned to our values and what we're trying to achieve here. And so on the investment plan, more precisely, it's a lot about continue to reduce the carbon intensity. The next step, we already have an objective by 2025, but as you know well, we are working towards already preparing our balance sheet towards 2030, and that's really the next step. That's where we want to hit the road in the coming months, quarter, and years, and reduce again drastically our carbon intensity in the coming years. We are also raising trying to raise our engagement, notably with corporates, because at the end of the day, we are not at all alone. I think corporates we are investing in are driving the transition and are having a lot of impact on the ground. So for us, engaging with them is extremely key, and is now fully part of our investment decision to continue to invest, to stop investing, or from time to time to divest certain corporates where we don't see further value and in a way, in the same way as we are evaluating their credit standing. So that I think is extremely important because at the end of the day, fixed income represents a vast majority of our assets and our future investment. And then last but not least, real assets, notably infrastructure, will remain quite key in Europe, in the US, with the Inflation Reduction Act, will continue to contribute to our investment plans. I stop there.
Well, I see. No doubt that you and your teams will be very busy, and we thank you really for everything you're doing, both for the customers and also for the impact we can have on environment and supporting the real economy. Thank you for being part of this discussion, Jean-Baptiste. And these are really, I hope you saw great examples to highlight AXA's impact across the value chain. I also wanted to mention that in the report you can find AXA's Index for Progress, which is a summary of the different actions we're taking to deliver on our purpose. be it through our investment activities, our insurance activities, but also as an exemplary organization. And those are a set of KPIs that we monitor and through which we want to also build trust with our external stakeholders that we're actively pursuing that positive impact. I have a couple of questions before we close, so we have 15 minutes, and I'm happy to maybe start with you, Antoine. There are two a bit slightly personal questions because I think people are always curious about two things. One, and I love this question, is about you're also chairing a very important internal organization, which is AXA Hearts in Action. So what is your relation? You know, you have started this as well for 1 year, and we've seen many pictures of you participating actively. So we would be glad to hear your thoughts about the role of AXA Hearts in Action, and then maybe to start with how you balance your two roles as a non-executive chairman for AXA and your activity as a lawyer with your own company.
Well, if I start by your second question, I would say that I have two full-time activities at the same time. Not really two full-times, but I have to organize my time to be fully involved, which is, of course, my key priority in my function as a chairman of the board, even if it is a non-executive task. But we all know that, especially in a group like AXA, which is heavily regulated, the board and the chairman have specific tasks and responsibilities. And given the size of the group, as I said a few minutes ago, it is important for me to go on the ground to visit teams, and so it takes some time, but that's okay. And with the help of my partners in my law firm, I think I successively managed to combine my two activities. And it is on substance, it is I think good for me to have my legal experience and expertise, which can help me to exercise my functions at AXA, because governance also is a legal issue, not only a financial one. Your first question relates to AXA à tout cœur. AXA à tout cœur, or AXA Heart in Action, is a fantastic initiative. That's really something which is totally specific, in my knowledge, to AXA, and the fact that several thousand of our employees have been are involved each year in the actions undertaken by AXA Heart in Action is really, really something which is extraordinary. And if I had to summarize my perception of that, I would say that with AXA Heart in Action, we can say that our purpose is not only words, that's really concrete acts, and that's what is that's the essence of what we want to do, and we have to preserve and develop that in the future.
Thank you very much, Antoine. And we will come back to you for a couple of concluding words. Before that, I have one question for each of you. Jean-Baptiste, for you, the question is around interest rates and what the consequences are for our investments. It's a very broad question, but you're welcome to answer it partially.
Yes, it can be a very long answer, but the very short answer is that for long-term insurers like AXA, it's a good news. I mean, it's an opportunity, and as I said, fixed income, government bonds, corporate bonds is the largest part of our investment. It's the fixed income represent more than 70% of our investment overall. So being able to reinvest our cash flows at better rates is generally good news. We have a sound ALM, asset liability management position, which allows to preserve the value of the company and to the various movement in interest rate. So for us, it's generally a good news, and thanks to disciplined approach in our ALM, I believe.
Perfect. You were successful in answering that quickly. Thank you for that. Kirsty, the question for you is on our global approach to smart working, mobility, sense of purpose. Very broad question as well. Yeah, I think basically it's around, we are a global company, and we see that there's a lot of fragmentation around how people feel from one region to another towards these topics of, they have, different ways of relating to their work, to their place, to the workplace, to inclusion, to diversity. So how can we manage having global policies in a world where these aspects are extremely, marked by culture and by local specificities?
Wow, now I have the challenge, because
like
Jean-Baptiste happened so concisely. Can I do the same? You're right, the world of work has changed a lot for everybody.
Yeah.
And there are as many different ways of working as there are countries and people and teams and jobs. And yet there are some things that remain quite the same. We need to spend time together. We need to appreciate each other and take care of each other. Creativity comes from spending time working, not working, focusing on a challenge. And the new world of work can make that more difficult. So I take it in two parts. First of all, in order to tackle that, we are very conscious that we need to take time to onboard new people to make sure that they really feel part of AXA. So when we bring in people now, we're giving special focus to that. We challenge our teams and our leaders to create moments of time together, both formally and informally, to keep that link. And topics like that are global topics. So I agree with you. It can be very different in different countries, and that's why in every country we have local teams that look after culture, that look after inclusion and diversity, which can mean very different things locally. But the broad themes of respecting one another, taking care, spending time together, making sure that we create the flexibility where we can, that people can be autonomous and yet still together, they are broad policies. The health policy, health is a priority for everybody. Different subjects according to your age or gender or other topics, but health remains core. So we have global policies, and we're proud of that because that pushes in a direction of progress together. But locally, we have to leave the opportunity for people to adapt. So not quite as short as yours, but still short for such a big question.
You did well. Thank you. Thank you very much. And those are really things that we could, there's so much to be said, but thank you very much to all of you for having been here. Thank you to our listeners for having taken interest in spending this time with us. I hope this has inspired you to go to our website and to discover our annual report, The Protection Effect, which is really insightful and very pleasant to read. And of course, I'm turning to you now, Antoine, to give you the floor for a couple of concluding words.
Thank you, Ulrike, and I promise I will be as concise as my friends. I explained a few minutes ago that our next strategic plan will be built on two pillars: financial objectives and non-financial ones. And I think that Kirstine and Jean-Baptiste perfectly illustrated these broad objectives. I hope that on the basis of what we have explained to you, this webinar will help everyone to better understand what is our roadmap. And I'm totally convinced that we will build on this basis an ambitious new strategic plan, and that we will be able to successfully deliver it. And thank you very much for having organized this session.
You're welcome, Antoine. Thank you very much. We hope to see many of you, our shareholders in particularly, on April 27th at the shareholders meeting in Paris, Salle Pleyel, or live on AXA.com. Thank you again to the three of you for having been here. Very inspiring session, and we will see you all very soon. Thank you.